Hello, my name is Michael Fortune from Folklore.ie, and what I want to do with you today is I want to show you some little Easter related crafts that are kind of associated with different traditions around Easter here in Ireland. And I suppose we can't mention Easter without mentioning the egg and hens and setting hens and our relationship with the egg. I suppose nowadays we're all connected to the chocolate egg, but in the past we would have been connected to these fellas. Hen and duck eggs. We still are. Some of us are still. We still are. If you can hear in the background, you probably hear some of my hens and ducks and things making noise in the background. But these are just duck eggs here. A duck egg here beside you, and a little bantam egg, a little small egg. And the eggs are all different. Comes in all different shapes and sizes and colours. But one of the things actually is that this time of year the hens are always setting, and one of the things that we've got setting hens here now, and we'd always have to get a piece of soot. I've got a piece of soot here, and this is what the older people did years ago. When a hen was setting, you'd put a piece of soot on it, you'd mark a cross on it, you'd mark a cross like that on it, and you'd mark that on it because then when the hen would be setting and she'd got different eggs, she'd have different eggs underneath her, you'd be able to go in the next day and figure out which egg was she setting on, or which egg was a fresh egg that another hen just laid there that morning. So that was a kind of cross tradition. Now we'd still do that with our hens here, and it's a lovely thing. People always said it blessed the egg, but also some people said put it there just for pure practical reasons, so you could distinguish that egg from an egg that was just laid this morning, so to save any confusion and save you from cracking open a bad egg, as they say. So that's one of the lovely little traditions around Easter. Hens kind of tend to set. People kind of tended to they wouldn't eat eggs during Lent either. So that's the other thing we need to remember. At this time of year, people fasted, and then they would have a big splurge out on eggs come Easter Sunday. And that's a tradition still to this day, even though now it's been replaced with chocolate eggs. But the tradition around eating hen eggs and duck eggs, it wasn't that long ago, really. You're talking the 1960s, really, early 70s, that people would have been looking forward to having a hen or a duck egg on Easter Sunday. One of the things that I would always remember recording up and down the country here in Wexford and up in Offaly and up in Mayo, that people would always try to get a piece of blessed salt as well on Easter Sunday. A piece of salt that was blessed and sprinkle it on their hen or duck egg that morning, and sure, there was a whole competition around eating as many as in the same way people splurge and eat loads of chocolate eggs as well. One of the kind of traditions, the kind of make and do traditions, or the guising traditions related to Easter, was a tradition called Googing for eggs. And some of you probably know that the term for an egg is sometimes it's called a goog or a googie egg. Sometimes you might remember even getting a cup with a boiled egg, broken up into the cup with butter and salt and smashed up with a fork and eaten. And any child around the country, or even adults around the country, will remember that. It's called a googie egg. It's an Irish word, and it survived over in Newfoundland. It survived in Australia. It survived in New Zealand. It's part of the language there. But it comes from here. It comes from the Irish. But one of the things here in Wexford, what people used to do was used to go googing for eggs leading up to Easter Sunday. So probably, I think it was a Holy Saturday, it was a day before Easter Sunday. Children would get dressed up, boys and girls, from anything from 7 or 8 up to a bigger age, and they'd get dressed up and they'd call to their neighbours' houses looking for eggs, and they'd have little rhymes. One little rhyme was Googs, eggs are money, ma'am. That was the saying. Googs, eggs are money, ma'am. Another saying was, my own grandmother heard that. She said, my Easter egg on you. It wasn't even Easter, it was my Easter egg on you, please. My Easter egg, meaning that they were looking. The same way as you go dressed up at Halloween. And the kind of costume that you would dress up then would be a little apron for the girls, a little basket and a stick and a little headscarf in your hair. And now in some parts as well, the older boys dressed up and they would put a mask on. They'd go do nighttime calling as well. That was called out in the Tobies. But the really interesting thing about that, it's tied in with their neighbours over in England. They have Pacegging. They have another similar Easter tradition. And up in Sweden and Finland, they have almost identical tradition to what we have here. I mean, even when you look at the costumes of the way the children dressed, with the apron, the little headscarf, the stick, all really important parts of that whole visual. Our little girls here do it, and you'll probably see some photographs there now. I'm going to put on over the screen of them going out googing for eggs, but it's all chocolate eggs nowadays, I'm afraid. Another thing, whatever the children did, was they would go out, and that day, when they collect the eggs, they would have a clúdóg, or was kind of a picnic. And this word, there's different words from around the country. Prahóg in parts of the country, playdóg as well down here. And it was it was where the children would go out, and rather than saving up their Easter eggs for Easter Sunday, their hen and duck eggs, they'd actually light a little fire, and they would they'd boil them up, and they'd eat them there and then they might bring some home with them. So the amount of people I've recorded around the country who remember doing this, and I've even seen people up around Cavan still doing it with their grandchildren. But you'd go out, the children would go out, and if they had a little sweet tin or a little billy can, something like this, or they might have a little tear drawer, any kind of container at all, they'd bring them out with them, and they'd light a little fire, and they'd put their eggs into it, and they'd boil up the eggs. A lot of people have said all they would have had was maybe an old sweet tin or an old bean tin if they had it, and you do something like that, really improvised, and you'd basically boil it up and you'd eat the eggs. But again, all over the country, from Mayo to Cavan down here to Wexford, I've recorded accounts of this and different names for it, but it was that same tradition of eating as many eggs as you could, and that was a Saturday. Now some places as well went out that Easter Sunday or the Monday as well and did the same. One thing as well when I'm talking about the boiling up, I suppose the children like to decorate the eggs as well the best they could, and now we can go into any shop and you can buy markers and crayons and paints, whatever we need, but that wasn't there. And this is not that long ago. This is talking the 1950s, 60s, that people I would have recorded who remember this, and they all spoke about dyeing the eggs in whatever literally they could find, get their hands on at this time of the year. If you look behind me, you see the whins or the gorse or the furze bushes here, and that lovely coconut smell that you get off that. But they'd literally get bits and pieces, whatever they could, briar leaves, and they'd put them in with the eggs, and when they'd boil them up then they'd try to dye them. Some people told me as well they remembered even getting little bits of string, and when they'd wrap the string around them and when they'd boil it up then the egg would change slightly colour. Now it's not going to be completely vibrant colours that we know now, the colours that we can buy, but they'd change colours and they'd take it off and they'd be left with a little decoration. Some people had said all they would have was little bits of string, whatever. If you had coloured string, you'd leave a little mark on the eggs as well. While I remember one person saying that they used to drop bits of wax on their eggs, and it would drop bits of wax on their eggs, and again when it take on these colours. Now it was fairly non-scientific, to be fair. Whatever you could throw into would make a dye or a colour, that was it. But it's still the process was lovely, and that's part of a wider European tradition of dyeing eggs and colouring eggs, and it goes right down to the Middle East. It's a bigger tradition. Another thing as well, when we talk about Easter, and I'd mentioned it earlier on, was I suppose the ritual really of getting something blessed at Easter for people who are religious, for Catholic and Church of Ireland communities here. I know there's different religions in Ireland now, but and no religions. But one of the things was that they would. I remember here in Wexford, and I've come across up the country as well, was where they'd always get salt blessed at Easter, a bit of salt blessed, and that salt then was used to sprinkle on a cow or a calf, and the cow would calf, but it was also used on your egg, or your big duck egg, on an Easter Sunday morning. But one of the things which I would have been recording people telling me this, they would get seed potato blessed, they'd get butter blessed, they'd get salt blessed. Salt in particular, the people had a great belief in salt as a substance. But only in the last 15 years more, I began to notice when our new Polish community started to settle in Ireland, people who were mothers and fathers were from Poland, I started to notice the blessing of the basket tradition in the churches, especially at Polish masses. And it's funny, it took, I've been saying it for years since I saw it, it took Polish people to come to Ireland for us to realise what we did, because we let it completely fade away back in the late 60s and 70s. Now I know some places still did it, but in the bigger scheme of things, while it took the Polish community to make us kind of reflect, God, we did that as well. And for those of you who don't know, you will see on the Holy Saturday, the Saturday before Easter Sunday, you will see baskets, these most gorgeous baskets with cheese and meat and eggs and salt and butter and little drops of milk, different things into them, little chocolate sweets as well. And people will go and they will have, they leave them out on the altar, and then there'll be the mass and they'll be blessed, and then people will go up and take them home then. Sometimes they might even snack in a bit of it that evening, or it'll wait till the following day then as well. And that's found around the country. I have great footage. I'll just play it for you, some of it there now. You see it from Carlow from about 2 years ago, from the cathedral in Carlow here in South Leinster, of the Polish community. And this is found up and down, north, south, east and west around Ireland. So it's a lovely thing to do. And again, it's I love the look of the look and the colour of the little baskets, and everyone dressed up and going to mass that day. And the final thing which I want to talk to you about is around the keeping up of eggshells. And again, after Easter Sunday, what was done here in Wexford and done up around the country, up in Offaly and up through South Ulster as well, and parts of East Galway and East Munster, was the tradition of decorating the Maybush. And the Maybush was it was a white thorn or a skeoch that we decorate on May Eve usually, or sometimes May Day, and you decorate it up. It was meant to keep the fairies away, but people would put little seasonal flowers like primroses and things like that on it, but they always decorated them with eggshells, and these were always the same eggshells that were kept up from Easter Sunday. And even to this day, I know people here, neighbours of mine up the road, who would literally, she would still be collecting, a woman called Cathy Byrne, and she would be collecting her her eggshells now, and she'll keep them up until the May Eve, and was mostly done by girls. And what they would do is, these are some that I actually saved from a Maybush that was going to be burnt here in Wexford a couple of years ago, made by children, and they would paint little pictures on them, and they'd paint them. Now obviously we're using poster paints and acrylic paints and all this, but that's what the tradition was. Even things like this, little bits of detail here, and these would be kept up. And sometimes, it depended on how many you'd have, some would make little strands like these, while more, I've seen absolutely gorgeous photographs from County Laois where people would actually string them around in a garland around a bush, a living bush, and you'd have a whole garland of eggshells. So there you have it. There's the tradition now from Easter, our connection to the egg with Easter, and that brings us right up to the 1st of May, up to Bealtaine and the start of the summer. So like so many of our traditions, they're actually all tied in. There's a little fine thread that runs through so many of our traditions that connects them and brings us on to the different stages in our calendar year. So thanks a million for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed it.